I really need a selfie stick or something because this is really garbage. I'm trying to find a configuration to hold my phone in right position because it's just disgusting. And I keep pressing the volume buttons and it keeps turning off the video. But hello everyone, I'm Michael Mechanical. I want to make a quick video pretty much for mostly people with 4056T. There's also potential that it might support 4M40s, turbo or non-turbo, doesn't matter. There's a thing there, and we're having a bit of discussion because we do have a plan to potentially make some parts, but we are not planning to actually do this because as much as we want to do it, we're going to do it as a casual thing at the moment, but we're not going to go full on because it's just too many risks and viability. It needs to be right for us, but it also needs to be right for, potential clients, customers, whatever you want to call it. And I don't want to break a bit of a trade deal I was going to try and do with someone in order for my dad to get something for the price he wants. And it's my dad's deal and his idea and all that stuff. However, apparently it's been mentioned before in another group that I'm not a part of, so therefore it's not only my dad's idea, but it's others. But I want to confirm with people who are thinking about this that it is possible to do what people have asked because it's been done. And there are benefits, there are pros to it, and then there's cons to it as well. But it's more or less, you're looking at the pros of the important things. The cons are pretty much, there's a reason for the cons. It is a pain in the butt to pull out without the risk of damage, but also the other con is potentially your risk of not correctly putting it in an installation, and it can cause some issues. And with the way we're doing it now, knowing how people are going to use this part, my dad's trying to be like, we have to make it absolutely perfect and flush with this surface. But I pretty much said no, because anyone who knows anything about this seal and anyone who buys this part is literally going to come along and put silicone on there anyway. He's assuming you wouldn't. I'm assuming that you would, because from experience, that D-seal rubber on the back of the motor that's always sitting about here, this is the 4056 head, there's a D-seal rubber that sits in there. I took mine out. The reason I took it out is because I was just seeing if we could do the way I wanted to do it, to be the most efficient way of making the parts. My dad wanted to waste material and it would have been more expensive to make the parts because viability and stuff. Now, you can make the parts, but based on what I know, the tooling, if we make one mistake, the viability literally just plummets off completely because the tools just cost a lot of money to make these parts in the first place. And there is always a risk that if you do not set it up correctly, you will break a tool. Now, I've talked to enough people. I talked to my dad, I talked to actual engineers, because we have tools and we can do it. Not here, where I lived before. And everyone will have some point of view to go and reference it. Like, for example, I have this mini lathe. We have two bigger lathes, a milling machine, and a tool and cutter grinder at the other house. It also has free phase. We don't have free phase here. So any of that machining stuff's going to happen at the other house. And we do know how to make the parts as cheaply as we can possibly make it. And the material, surprisingly, isn't going to cost that much for material. It's just the time, the setup, the tooling. And we're also looking at how much does the original D-seal cost and how much would someone realistically want to spend on this one part. Now, it's not worth your time to go to an engineering shop and ask them to make this part up for you. They will literally charge you for multiple hours of time just to make you one part, unless you're making multiple or a bulk load of them, in which case it will cost you a lot of money. And if you can't sell the part, that's the next problem. If you cannot sell that part, no one buys that part, you play a risk of buying something you can't sell. Long-term sustainability of this specific part is literally, as you sell, the viability of sales goes down because you then lose customers. You actually are selling something that reduces your clientele, and it actually hurts you as the person supplying the part. So it is one of those things where if we do this, it's literally going to hurt us in the long term. So it depends on what you want to do. If you buy this part, you'll never have to replace it ever again, because it will literally outlast the motor. It's one part that will outlast the motor. It's the D-seal. The original ones are made of a silicon. The ones we are intending to make, we've already got one. We already own one because my dad overdid it, and it cost him a lot of time and money to make one part. He reckons that based on the one part that he made, that was like a couple of days of work to him. I tell him as an engineer that it's pretty stupid it took you a couple of days to make one part. I told him that because the multiple processes he did to make that part was essentially, he got a round bar, he machined a flat off of the top, and he lost half of his material and it's just gone in the bin. The other half he cut perfectly, the way he designed it, he cut it perfectly that it sits literally level, absolutely flush with the surface of the gasket sealing surface. So in theory, if you put that in, you'll never ever have to put silicone on the head ever again. But that's not true, because I know you guys would do it anyway. You'll never stop using silicone on that area. So therefore, it is out of the equation to be perfect. Perfection is not perfect. That's the problem. So we're looking at the viability to make this part, how many we could make and how many we could sell. And we're trying to make a deal with someone, and they're not sure about the market and stuff. And I'm thinking about cutting a deal with them if there is viability, where essentially they'll give my dad something cheaper. My dad will still be paying them for something. In exchange, they're going to buy this part and they're going to sell it to you guys instead. And that's the kind of transaction we're going to have. And it will come down to what they want to sell it to you for, not what we would want to sell it to you for. Because you'll have your shipping costs and you'll be paying for a part, and part of you will probably be like, this is too expensive, I don't want to pay this much for one simple part. So there are risks and rewards with this, depending on how you do it, unless we can find a way to make it cheap enough to move parts and move stock, which is a real challenge when it comes down to this stuff. Hence why it's a very huge risk for him to buy pretty much a bulk load off of us. We've already agreed to, it would probably take us, with the time we've allocated, we probably could make 24 in the time frame we've given him, based on how long we believe it would take to make the parts the way we have to do it to set it up. There are different ways of doing it, but the more you buy, the more expensive it becomes. There's like these, risk factors. You can go and you can take this idea and ask someone else to do it. You can buy and sell. You will run out of customers. You will have all sorts of weird difficulties that you have to make good business sense. It doesn't make good business sense to take this part specifically to a certain type of engineering shop and have them make a batch of them, a huge batch, to give to you to then sell, that you'll run out of customers, because you'll be paying a very high rate for them to program and then throw it on machines that will just automatically spit the parts out, because they will charge about $200 per hour. Whereas we are looking at the rates based on our technology and how it's timed and dated, it's only worth about $60 per hour for us to do it. And that's also the rates at which it is in the local area anyway that they operate. So even some of the local shops that do the CNC stuff, they do the $60 mark anyway. I believe it's actually $60 before tax, $66 after tax. So they take $6 for tax reasons to then give to the tax man, so they don't completely lose out. So that's why it's 66 in reality. When I say 60, it's always that before tax thing I forget about. So based on what I know, we can make that part, but if you want to see this part be made and you're interested in one, it'd be best to, get in touch. And if we do make that deal and he does make that deal and he sells something to my dad cheaper, and we do this agreement and we come to that conclusion, that deal, these parts will actually go to him and then he will redistribute to you pretty much. Or the way we were actually looking at doing it is, On his behalf, he'll tell us the customer's information, and where we have it here instead of shipping everything to him, which reason we'd ship it to him is he wants one anyway, so in the short term, it will go to him anyway. And if there's more customers after the batch that's made, what would happen is he would send us something like a recipient created invoice or whatever it's called. I can't remember what it was. And then that would be essentially him giving us, in some sense, permission to then do the shipping and freight and to make the part and ship it to you, but using his credentials. And the return address, the sender address, would be going back to him. It wouldn't come back to us, even though it get sent from us. And we're multiple states away. I don't know how it actually works in reality, but that's what the idea would be. So then he's paying for the part and it doesn't come back to us, because then we owe him because we got the part back. And because he's essentially going to be paying us for the part. He's going to be paying us for the freight to then ship it out to you. So he needs that part to return to him if it fails. There are real logical reasons behind why that has to work like that and how it has to be fair like that. That's how we would do our business and run it. And there's this thing that we want to try and do is build up some rapport with people, that if we can do something, we can literally make the parts that people want, make whatever people want. It's literally a time and age where making parts does become impossibly challenging and complex to make good business sense, because the market's changed. The climate has changed. That this is like, we are taking our chances. We've already owned these tools. You could go out and you could buy these tools yourself, but you will not make money off of it. You won't make anything out of it because it's just too much of a risk. I bought my lathe because I wanted a starter point to start learning and making my own stuff. That is where the lathe came in for me. However, if it turns into a thing where the lathe that I have allows me to get some work in that I can do myself, then that's awesome. I can then do work on my lathe. But I can't even use it. It's costing me and it wasn't worth it. But for personal hobbying stuff, yes, it's worth it. You have to make financial sense of what you're buying and why you're buying it. For me, the financial sense of this, I want to make a tool that can take this rod and I can put it on like servo motors and stuff and CNC bending material. And the reason I want to do that is I want to make a whole bunch of hooks for like, wall anchors and stuff that I can just push into the wall, and it's like having what the shopping centers have. The thing is, the reason that's viable to me is those anchors and hooks cost anywhere from like $5 to $20 a piece, and I'm like, yikes. Whereas I could probably make them, based on the material cost, I could probably make them for around the $2 mark when it's paid for itself. In the beginning, if I make all those hook anchors, it'd probably be a cost neutral project at the end of the day if I do this the way I want to do it. But in the short term, it's not worth it. In the long term, I'll have a tool that's paid for itself by making me all these wool anchors for my, workshop. But then for you guys, it's like if you wanted to buy a wool anchor or something, the way I design it or whatever, you could. And then I have that CNC capability to change the design and do it the way I want to do it. And the reason that to me is cool is because I can just have so much flexibility. I can change the sizes and make special dies to handle different types of wire, and I can control the loads that it can handle, and so on and so forth. Except it'll be it'll be based on what the equipment is built to. Like these wall anchors, you can go to Bunnings and buy them for like $5 or something ridiculously cheap, which is really cool that they can do that. But, unless you have some way of making them high production, whatever, they're making a profit on that. I can't. And as I said, $2 is probably what it would cost me to make my own the way I want to make them. Because I just want to be like a pegboard that's heavy duty enough that I can make these wall anchors that can support a piece like this, but also go into wool, or it's like a hook wall anchor that's designed to suit this, that's bent correctly, that it will replace this whole assembly and just be a wall hook anchor thingy that can do that. And just hinges into the wall with a special mechanism that makes it so when you pull the tool off, it doesn't just come out of the wall because it's set on a certain angle that it's tight to get in, but then when you pull it out, it pulls an angle that increases friction and it locks it in place when you're pulling it. But when you push it, yeah, and then you have to like lift it up and pull sort of to pull it out, but when you're pulling it off like in general use, it won't come off. So it's essentially a hook that does not require you to do anything too fancy. And if I can pull something like that off, that would be pretty cool. So with what we're doing, that's the part we will potentially be making. We've already made one. We know it works. We know the pros and cons. And as I told my dad, if you don't remove it correctly when it needs to be removed, it will get damaged and you will have to replace it. So you need to look after it and know how to remove it, meaning you have to use soft tools for removal or a pry bar to not hit it with a hammer. If you hit it with a hammer, you're going to damage it and that won't be good. You'll damage the part. You don't want to do that. You want a perfect part every time, so you need to pry it out the proper way. No hammers. No hammers at all. You just use force and that's it. Now, when it comes to the 4056 engine, multiple things can go wrong. And since we've now got on over the first part, which was about the part, we're going to get on to what can go wrong with the 4056 that I've had experience with. I've blown multiple head gaskets for multiple reasons. It's because your compressions can be wrong, like too high, sort of be too low, and then you're pushing it too hard when it's too low. You can have the other issue with injectors being fouled, and that fouling can cause overheating, which can increase your EGT temperatures. And if you don't know what the EGTs are, which we don't generally know, you will blow a head gasket. You can use the sort of composite gaskets, but they do not move heat very well. So if you push the car very hard, it is highly likely to fail. It doesn't matter what your mileage may look like and you know how young the engine is, the composite gasket will always fail and it will not be able to handle the heat transfer because the cast iron block's coefficient is different from the aluminum head, and you have insulated them apart with a head gasket with a very mild amount of thermo transfer thingy-mabobbo. I don't remember what it's called. If your deck isn't right and you have imperfections, the RA is not right, you will have a head gasket failure every time, and it could be at any point in the lifespan of the engine. You don't do the head correctly, if the head has a crack in it, if it's warped, distorted, or if the metal is soft, you will definitely have the head gasket fail. And that's generally the biggest things with head gaskets. When it comes to oil, now this is unlikely to happen to you because you are not stupid enough to do this. And while I did build this engine, I did it my dad's way of the highway. He is very hard to talk to. He still can be good, but he can also be an idiot at times. And I like being honest about that stuff because you don't want to do the thing he did, because even though in the manufacturers they do it, it's under warranty. If it fails, at least it's on them, whatever. But on us, it's a bad idea because you don't know the quality of your stuff you're using for one-time use or multiple-time use. You need to have experience and knowledge and know your products very well. But as you can see, this surface here is painted. These surfaces all the way around the block were pretty much painted except for the aluminium parts. They weren't painted. It was the block and it was all gasket sealing surfaces. So where we have a gasket behind this aluminum plate, it is literally the block that has been painted, and that can cause a couple of different things because you're meant to be using silicone, which is designed for the oil and stuff. That paint might not be able to handle the oil contamination, and then the oil will make it distort, warp, whatever you call it, and crack up, which this paint has a tendency to do. Somewhere on this block we will see it flakes. It always flakes around this part because it doesn't like sticking. You can see it hasn't sticked very well here or here, and it looks like it's been impact marks, but I see this paint flaking off the block anyway, and I've seen it on my engine, and it tends to be in this region somewhere here that I have it flaking off the top here. So there, it's flaking off, it's chipping away, and it's literally just a shitty quality paint. And as a result, that shit quality paint that we used, I call it shit because it was I've got a can here, so you know what the paint is, to know, you know, this is what I used, and you can tell me I'm wrong, that's a high quality paint, but I'm telling you from my experience, it's not. So this is the paint can that was used pretty much to paint it, and it's an engine enamel. It is also very high temperature paint. It used to sell for about $30 a can in Super Cheap. It's the same color. This is the can, this is the paint that we used to paint that engine. We did, for him, he painted it with just the paint. For me, when I did my engine, my yellow motor that's in my car, and the inspiration for it being yellow is a Caterpillar engine, I literally used a primer as well as that, and then I also used a clear. So I did 3 different types of paints, and it still flaked and cracked and all sorts, because I wanted that paint to last as long as I could make it last. And Dad, he just used the paint on raw metal and it flakes off. So there is no guarantees of this ever working very well for you, and I can prove it with my engine because I took videos. I literally filmed everything. It's just about finding the freaking videos, editing them that they are suitable for the internet, because they are multiple hours long, and it's hard to edit them down. There might be one already on the channel for the painting because I did it in the stages, so I think that one's already online. The other ones I didn't because, as you know, I'm a bit of a slacker when it comes to making videos, but I can also explain my setup. So if we're happy with what we've talked about in the shed, then I want to get to something much more boring because I'm doing some cleaning up and working. We are going to be getting lights in the shed, total of 6. 4 double battens that are going to go somewhere between, like, you're going to put 2 over here, 1, 2, and then 3, 4, and 5, 6, and it's nice and evenly spaced, and I'm going to use them in those points. It's not going to be professional at this point in time, but it eventually will be. Now, I'd love to tell you guys, you can buy these plastic trays for about $8, $9 each, and then you can organize your socket sets for your 1/2 inch, your 3/4, and your 1/4 inch sets of sockets and stuff. Your deep throats go to the back and your short ones go to the front. It's a great system, and it's very, very nice and neat and organized. So, also that engine there, that block, because it's been apart for so long, it literally has rust in the bores. There's a risk there with damage been done for a couple of years. I think it's 2021 was when we pulled it apart again, and it's been 3 years apart. That could be bad. Hey Alexa, stop music! Crap, I forgot to turn off. Forgot to turn this off. So, we've also got a cat. We've got the Pajero. And also, not to mention, the reason my dad wants to get a good deal on those heads, I didn't even mention that before, what the parts were. My dad wants to get a good deal on heads is because he doesn't want to spend too much money, because he spent so much on his car in the first place, and so many people have stuffed him over with a V6 Pajero that he's not happy. Diesel, it's his mistakes, but when you give a job to professionals and pay them thousands of dollars, that is where you get real annoyed and you don't want to spend money on it. He does because he liked driving it, but the timing was always set wrong. That stuff that's head gaskets up. He also shaved the head too much, and he got told he's an idiot by some other person who's also an idiot. So I've had my hand in dealing with idiots that it's not great. So, time to get to the boring stuff. So in my office, I'm going to be cleaning up and reorganizing things. I want to make it understood that I do like doing my game development stuff, hence why there's some pretty pictures on the wall, and I have a furry character there, because I was going to make a game, and I don't know when I'm going to get into it again, but it's so hard to get into. This was done by artists, not by me. Favorite image out of all 3 of these is the middle one. It is beautiful. That's the art style of the game and what the game world would kind of look like. It is lovely. I love it. With that nice rainbow in it as well. It doesn't look the greatest in, you know, the picture with the rainbow, but I get the ideas across, and that would look great in a video game. Now, my desk is a mess. I apologize. It's always a mess, and that's why it's like trying to organize to get stuff done is hard. This house is small. I have a business going, so I have to have some boxes for stuff and keep replenishing, and then all these postage mailer bag thingies. On top of that, I have different kinds of projects to be managing, and it's very complex, very hard, and it's so challenging to get around to making videos with the cancer stuff that I've had in the recent years, and my health and work and so many things. It can sometimes be overwhelming and stressful. Now, to understand what the problem is, this is my main computer. This here is my Aurorus. It's an i7 laptop, and even though I can render some videos on it, if I do projects on this laptop, the battery dies down and it runs out of power is one of the problems I have. The other problem is it doesn't have enough RAM, it doesn't have enough SSD capacity, so working off the laptop is terrible. This, on the other hand, is the grunt that I have. It's still not nearly as powerful as the laptop, but it's a lot more heavy duty for those kind of tasks, and it can handle them a lot better than the laptop can, because if the laptop's battery dies, the work gets corrupted. And the laptop is driving the 4K monitor. The 4K monitor gives me so much better quality for the task I want to do. It is the correct size for the eye distance that I'm away from my monitor. I built the desk design based on the fact that I wanted a bit of working space so that I can grab, like, say, for example, here's my clipboard. I can throw my clipboard down and I can do some paperwork right in front of me while I'm typing on the computer. I can do multiple facets of work just by designing my desk around so many complicated situations, and it does not look like it's paid off that well, but I'm trying to make it work because we've moved and so many things have changed, and I built it finally. Then the other thing is the computer being on the desk like this. Now, to be understood, the reason I don't use this right now is because it's not set up permanently the way I want. I don't have my second monitor that I want as well. I have too many cables on the desk that is bothering the crappers out of me. And this computer here, the box is intended to be an undermount in the back corner somewhere here on my desk where I'm not going to be kicking it or breaking it. But I also have that channel there for electrical connections and cables and Ethernet and stuff. And then there's also plugs that keep falling down. I'm trying to organize this desk in a way. Another thing is I have so much paperwork around my network because we keep having issues with the network. We've got the battery. We got this little Wi-Fi extender mesh thingy from Optus because they were being a pain in the butt and they wouldn't sell us one, which is a rip-off. I want them to sell me one. And I'm making this video as lazy as I can because I don't feel like I have time to do everything. I'm even, I struggle that much that I can't even do the cleaning up and organizing. I'm trying to make time for it. I've only got less than maybe an hour to do some cleaning now at this point. So this video being half an hour has just taken half an hour away from my cleaning, which was going to be an hour. I wanted to make the video to keep you up to date with what's going on. On top of that, I've got all my printers and stuff. I want to get a better printer eventually, but for now, I've got a brand new ink, and when that runs out of ink and the thing's on its way out, that's when I'm probably going to get rid of it for a couple of dollars or maybe for free and upgrade pretty much. But at the moment, I own what I own. I'm not going to just get rid of it because I don't print enough yet anyway, but there is a merit in me buying a better printer. The risk with the new printer is it clogs and jams. That is why I don't want to necessarily rush to get a new one unless I'm doing enough paperwork. Then I have my old ass printer, which is clogged and jammed, but it will work again if I give it to the right person who wants to use it. The problem is that compared to this printer I'm using now, it only gets about a sixth of the pages you can print out of it. It can only print 800 pages. This can print up to 2,600 pages. I can only print 800 on the other one in full color or whatever. Right. The quality of the print, that's the quality of the printer right there. With the old camera that I had, that's a 1920 by 1080p image off of a Handycam. And that was my old ute and my mum's car that she drives. That's my dad, that's my mum. And she's like, oh my God, with how close I got the car to the other car. I did that because I thought it was cool. So you get a hint that a genuine understanding of my life. I make myself so much work that if I work on videos, it just takes up all of my time, and I need to make good financial business sense of everything that I'm doing. This video doesn't make financial business sense unless you guys really want that part. And I like to keep you up to date with things and give you information, and I like to share what I know rather than let you guys, not know what's going on. And also, so then you actually have access to information, which is otherwise, how am I going to know this if someone doesn't put it out there? That part that everyone wants, made out of, aluminum, we'll make another video. It will only be about 5 minutes long. We'll talk a bit about it. And I will probably refer you to the other person if you want to buy it, because he's going to take the financial risk at the end of the day if he does make the deal. If you guys can give it enough, likes in the groups or whatever, or, ask for this part by, putting in that request to get a price, he can end up telling you how much he wants to sell it for, and then once he knows what he wants to order, he might make the order to buy these parts, and then he'll probably either have us, do the shipping for him, or he might take all the parts and then ship them himself, which is actually a better idea in one hand, unless he can figure out that it's cheaper to do the shipping from us, because we're in sort of the center of Australia, whereas he's on the edge of Australia. So for him, business sense might be, he says, he'll take some and it's local shipping in the Queensland area, and then for Northern Territory or Western Australia, he might say, you send them the other way on my behalf, sort of thing. And then if the return address is essentially his, if it goes to the Western Australia Perth area, then if it does not stay there and it gets returned to sender, then it goes back to him, and then he can arrange to ship it back to you, sort of thing, which will be a really interesting challenge, but the whole thing is a challenge. Anyway, guys, I'm going to let you go. I'm going to love you and leave you and upload this and get back to my cleaning up of all this. We are going to get lights. My car is getting a new gearbox, so it's getting shipped in a week's time, the whole car with the gearbox, because it's sitting out the front. You've already know a bit about it. I haven't really taken a video, I don't think, of the gearbox, but the car is out the front, hiding right there. You can see my car's right there. The gearbox still drives. Nothing's broken majorly, it's just major wear and tear, and things could be damaged internally to the point they need replacing. I'm going to love you and leave you now, but thank you very much for watching the video, engaging with the content, and considering your options. Love you and leave you. Michael the Mechanical out.